Okay, and we're going to give it like right now. Okay, I know we still got, we're 75, 76, but Jason, are you ready? I'll get things rocking and rolling, and in about 8 minutes, you'll take it. Right, buddy?
Yes, sir. You got it, my friend.
Okay, so let's dive in this morning. And again, we're probably going to get about another 100 or so participants, but this is the boring Randy stuff. So we'll just get this out of the way. John Green, I know you're already laughing at that. So there we go. But I'm Randy Redner. I'm the CEO of the Community Foundation, and we just welcome you to Reimagining Leadership, right? At the Community Foundation, our role is to connect people who care to causes that matter. And like like to tell Dick Lopresti, our board chair, who I see on my screen right now, when we're really on our game, we can do reverse. We can connect, causes that matter to people that care. And this morning, we're going to connect about 180 to 200 of you to some really great leadership. We've got folks from my board. So I've got my bosses on the line this morning, 8, 9, 10 of them. Feel free to harass them by chat messages back and forth. That's good. We have a number of our fund holders on the call this morning, so that's great. We also, though, invited in some of our best students, top students from Georgia Gwinnett College and from Gwinnett County Public Schools are also on the line this morning and spending 4 hours with us. So we invited them to be our guests with us. But the Community Foundation, just like in each of your worlds, we're all on a journey together. I want to make sure you understand that the Community Foundation, we created a COVID relief fund a year ago, raised 1.1 million. We pushed out almost all of that by the end of the year. And in December, my board, we all had a conversation and said, we are not done yet. Dr. Audrey Arona, our county health director, is on our board, and she talked to us about wave 3 of the COVID pandemic, and wave 3. And we asked her, when is going to be that peak of this third and hopefully final wave? And she said, Randy, I think that's going to be about the middle to the late January. Once we kind of get through the holiday push that will, push COVID numbers up. But then hopefully by then, vaccines start to get distributed and we start to accelerate that distribution. And that's exactly, what we have seen. So we decided as an organization to replenish that COVID fund. We have pushed that through the help of the board to back over $500,000. So I make the offer to the nonprofits that are on this call this morning that if you have something we need to take a look at for you and your organization, just send me an email. I don't need the 42 pages, Kelly Brewer, not the 42 pages. I just need the one paragraph that says, hey, this is what we're working on in terms of COVID relief. Can the Community Foundation take a look at that? And we'll be glad to do that. So we know we're trying to all finish this third wave together. The other thing we can do for you is education. The 4 hours that we're spending this morning, and then you guys will also be first to know. This will go out next week. Our grant writing class with Elizabeth Hornbuckle and her team will be on March 25th, Thursday, March 25th. Registration coming out, next week. But why this morning? Again, working with Dr. Arona, we started working with Jason at Maxwell, Rodney at Chick-fil-A, and the team at Disney about 5 months ago, believe it or not. And we said, as this thing starts to crest, and we're coming down the backside of it, where can we insert and what do we need to insert? And some of you that I'm looking at on this screen do not know, but I had conversations with you. And I said, what is the one thing that you need at this time when it intersects? And in that conversation, every one of you in some form or fashion came back and said, teach us about leadership, right? We're going to have to approach this differently moving forward. Someone once told me, learn from the past, plan for the present, and create the roadmap for the future. As I tell my team, you can look back, don't go back, right? We have to look forward as leaders. So we wanted to provide a reimagining of your leadership skills what that looks like around you at the moment, and then what does it need to be going forward? Because you're going to have to lead your teams and your communities and yourself in a much different way than you had in the past. So that's why we said reimagine leadership was the right thing to do. Let me give you 3 quotes, and I'll put these in the chat so you have them as well. John Maxwell, who we start with Jason this morning. This is a quote from him. "We cannot become what we need by remaining what we are. We cannot become what we need by remaining what we are." You have to be a better leader tomorrow than you are today. You have to be even better than that next week to accelerate the recovery of what we wanted to do. Walt Disney, everyone falls down. Getting back up is how we learn how to walk. Everyone falls down. And this entire planet has fallen down to this pandemic. Everyone falls down. Getting back up is how we learn how to walk. Truett Cathy. People want to work with a person, not for an organization. People want to work with a person, not for an organization. My version of that is leaders lead, right? It's moments like this at this time that step forward, right? And you see those folks that step into it, and you see those leaders that step out. So I know we have a group of about 200 leaders this morning that have been leaning into this challenge for a year. But we see a brighter future in front of us. We can start to see hope and go, how are we going to lead our way out of it and then accelerate that? Okay, we've got the Christie's Zoom room rules of engagement. Okay, we've all been at this for a year. We should know this by now, but what the heck? She makes me tell these things. Okay, yes, we will be sending out information after the call, right? We can, record Jason's session. We can record Rodney's session. The Disney session, we are not allowed to record. You are not allowed to record it. You're not allowed to take pictures of it, right? It is all proprietary for you guys this morning. So from that, and the Disney team will remind you of that, but we will be sending out links and all of that information after the call. You should have already gotten the Disney program guide. If you didn't, Christy's going to put a link in the chat box where you can go to our website and get it and take a look. The Disney people wanted you to see what they're going to be training you on in in about an hour from there. Please keep yourself muted or Christy, the hand of God will come in and mute you. So we can go from there. Please put your questions in the chat box. Christy is monitoring the chat box and be working with the speakers. We know we won't be able to get to every question, but afterwards she will really work to make sure whatever question you had, you get an answer to that from there. The flow of our morning, Jason is up first from John Maxwell. Then we're going to Zoom from the Maxwell room that you're in the Maxwell Zoom room right now. Then you're going to have to Zoom to the Magic Kingdom. Christy will put that link in the chat box for you. So you will Zoom to the Magic Kingdom for 2 hours. And then you're going to have to Zoom back to the Chick-fil-A room, right? And we'll give you the link to come back to that room with Rodney. So you got a little work to do. Pay attention. Anybody that gets lost, sorry about that. From there. So Disney will be Kevin and Pat. And then finally, we'll finish with Rodney Bullard from Chick-fil-A. We will be doing brain breaks at 9, 10, and 11 for 10 minutes. A chance for, Kent Davis to get up, walk around a little bit. Look at, he's smiling. I love it. Yeah. So at 9, 10, and 11, 10-minute break, get up, get a cup of coffee, do what you need to do, answer all the emails that you've been sending while, you've been watching this presentation, all that kind of stuff from there. So with that, let me introduce, Jason from John Maxwell. And Christy, you're trying to get up his slide. Nope, I see I see pictures of the kids. No, I'm teasing. Okay, Jason is a director of leadership advancement for the John Maxwell Company. when Jason hasn't been sidelined by the pandemic, he travels the entire globe as both a speaker, coach, and trainer of leadership development. But most importantly, Jason is a ladies' man. So I reached out to Jason yesterday and I said, Jason, give me a little personal something to share with the crowd. His response was this. He said, I married my best friend, Lara, and I am the proudest girl dad on the planet to my princesses, Liliana Hope, who's 15, and Farron Joy, who is 8. All 3 of these ladies make my life better. So Jason, I turn it over to you, and I think you're going to talk about pivot to progress. I'm really looking forward to this. Jason, thank you.
You got it. Can you hear me, Randy?
I absolutely can.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction. And I'm a big fan of what John Maxwell says about biographies and introductions. Basically, if you're good, you don't need one. And if you're bad, a good one can't help you. So hopefully I will be able to partner with you, be the shrimp cocktail of the day, because everybody that's leaning in, that have invested in their own personal development, their own personal growth, they're going to get the filet mignon here in just a few minutes throughout the day. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you very much. I do see a picture on there, but I think, Christy, correct me if I need to share my screen. It says I'm viewing yours. Let's see here. Let me see if I can share my screen.
Yep, should be good to go.
Okay, I'm getting ready to share my screen here, and let's see if we can.
And in prep for this whole thing, Jason went to Disney last week with his wife and one of his daughters. So
that is
he's all Disneyed up, right? Okay,
that's right.
There you go.
That's
I like
right.
it.
Here we go, guys. Thank you. Thank you for that. So that is correct. And I'm going to touch on that here just very briefly. For those of you that are not familiar with John Maxwell, John's written about 100 books, about 130 if you count all the derivatives. He's authored 86, just released in January, but all 100 plus of his books have been translated into 50 languages. Now, he's authored several of those were New York Times best-selling books, and John has been named the #1 leadership expert in the world by Inc. magazine and gurus.com. So he also travels the world meeting people, all kinds of backgrounds, to help them go from success in life to significance. And the difference between those two words is this: success is what we do for ourselves. It's what Jason does for Jason. When I achieve success, it's for me. But when I experience significance is what I share and experience with others. It's what I do for other people. And John says it this way: once we experience significance, success will never satisfy. And so John goes all over the world helping people understand that they have a personal calling, a purpose in life. He helps them develop significance. And that's what he's done in my own personal life as well. So you're going to hear a little bit about that in a minute. But what you need to know is that I stand representing the #1 leadership expert in the world. And it truly is humbling to know that he teaches Fortune 500 company leaders, university staff members, students, you name it, from all over the world. And over the last several decades, John has carried his teachings and his wisdom and his leadership that he's gained, and he's brought that into multiple companies within our enterprise. And the John Maxwell Company is just one of those many companies where we really aspire to challenge and equip and inspire leaders to live out leadership. That's basically what it's all about. We distribute John's content, his intellectual property, his customized curriculum that we curate for individual organizations of all sizes, of all impacts, of all industries. And we do that locally and we do that globally. So inspiring, challenging, and equipping leaders to live out leadership is what we do. So as far as my life goes, about 33 years ago, actually, my life was touched by John. I was 14 years old. I was a depressed, very despondent and discouraged young man. I was suffering from learning disabilities. I had a debilitating pituitary disease that had inhibited my physical, sexual, emotional, and intellectual development. I was being abused on a daily basis, and I didn't get help with my health issues until 16 days before my 21st birthday. And it was at that time in 1987 when I first heard John. I was 14 years old, but I was 12 days away from committing suicide. I had been stealing my mom's prescription sleeping pills and hiding them under the mattress in my bed that summer. You see, I was in the 8th grade going into my 9th grade year. I was living with a dysfunctional, abusive mother, and she was addicted to drugs and alcohol. My sister had just been removed from the family, and my dad had moved out of the country. And so I felt like I had no one. And my goal was to take 30 pills one night and never wake up. Nevertheless, thank goodness for those neverthelesses. I found hope that summer in 1987 when I heard John Maxwell. He was pastoring Skyline Wesleyan Church at that time in San Diego, but I heard him over the radio in the backseat of my mom's 1985 Mercury Cougar. Red velour seats. I'll never forget it. I would sit in the back seat because my mother couldn't reach me when we had an argument to abuse me. So I would always sit in the back seat. And that day, something happened. That day, I began dreaming of the what ifs, the possibilities. Maybe my life does have purpose. Maybe there is a meaning behind this adversity in my life right now. I began to shift my thinking. And it was at that time I began my transformational journey. And it was because of John's impact on my life that I have stayed the course of personal growth and development. You might ask why I am so passionate. Well, I believe that growth, our personal growth, has the power to change us individually. I'm a representation of that. I believe it has the power to connect our communities. And I also believe that personal growth and development has the ability to become a catalyst for corporations to help transform countries around the world, and et cetera. I mean, I've had my personal share of failures, don't get me wrong, but because of intentional growth, I went from believing that I was a loser and someone that was void of hope to becoming the legs to John Maxwell's legacy and a dealer of hope, literally. So today we're transforming communities and we're bridging the values gap that we see living out modeled in front of us every single day with transformational roundtables that we are bringing to countries, schools, communities through a movement called Change Your World. And to learn more how you can make a difference too, you can take a free comprehensive values assessment as well. You can go to changeyourworld.com and you can do that on your own time. But it's really exciting for me. As Randy indicated, it was last week, about an hour and 7 days away, that I took my family to Disney World. We were on a trip to see my father down in Florida in St. Petersburg. So we decided to make a day at Disney, and we went to the Magic Kingdom, and it was just an incredible experience altogether. The very first thing that we did is we went to the Carousel of Progress. Now, that wasn't my youngest daughter's favorite ride, so she thought. She thought we would go do something extremely adventurous and full of excitement. But I said, we're going to go to the Carousel of Progress. And what she experienced were 4 acts that showed progress in America going back to the early 1900s before electricity to today. And it was 20 minutes, and it absolutely became her favorite experience of the day. Today, she still talks about it. So I'm fresh off of being a part of the Disney experience. And I even came back with a mask because what I found being at Disney was you couldn't be in that park for very long without wearing a mask. In fact, I got reprimanded within the first 5 minutes. But what I've realized is it doesn't matter. As much as I'm not a big fan of the mask mandate, imagination, magic, and dreams are still possible. And those are the most exciting things besides hearing my daughter's laughter when she gets to see the magic, when I get to experience the magic through her own eyes. So there we are, making a memory together. And then I also have some ties to Chick-fil-A. It was after I graduated from high school, I got to go to a Chick-fil-A and work at Chick-fil-A to immerse myself in a culture that was full of growth, a culture that was a community of values. Because you see, in 1990, I won a state wrestling championship in Georgia, and I attended a state high school wrestling banquet. And the individual that handed me that plaque 31 years ago was Dan Cathy. His brother Bubba was there. And I remember walking into that experience and not seeing anything like that before. Each table had a carnation on it, and you just really felt welcome. You felt like you mattered. And I remember when they opened up the Chick-fil-A freestanding unit, not that far from my house in Bremen, Georgia, in Carrollton. It was the second or third freestanding unit that they had ever built. And I said, you know what? I don't have a whole lot of plans. I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, but that is a culture, that is a community, that is a growth environment that I want to be a part of. And so I worked at Chick-fil-A for 3 years, got to become friends with Dan and Bubba, was invited to Truett Cathy's house to ride motorcycles at the farm with his grandkids, and had no idea how significant that impact would be in my life and how that part of my life's journey would help get me to where I am today. You see, 30 years ago, Dan handed me that plaque, but a few weeks ago, we reconnected. We did a teaching together. We shared the stage, and we're sharing our growth experience. We were talking about growth environments. We were talking about the law of environment, and we were talking about the value that we have in today. And then that ended up being a full day experience for me. One Tuesday, well, we exchanged telephone numbers. We stay in touch to this day. And I invited Dan down to be a part of a Transformathon, a 5K with John, where we're raising awareness and support and resources to bring the values curriculum into schools all over the world. And I just picked up the phone and I said, Dan, would you like to attend? And he said, sure. He showed up, surprised John. It was an unbelievable experience. But he was a little dismayed because it was a walk. It was a 5K walk, not a 5K run. If you know anything about Dan Cathy, he is an absolute champion when it comes to wellness and his health. He runs, he bikes, he swims. So he was a little bit disappointed about the 5K being a walk. So he told me, he said, when this walk is over, I'm going to run it. Do you want to run it with me? And so who's going to say no to Dan Cathy, right? So my wife and I and two other people out of hundreds were the only four that ran the 5K with Dan afterwards. And yeah, he had to wait on me to catch up with him, but he made sure we crossed the finish line together. So those are the type of experiences that I've had in my life, I've had recently, and the timing for me to be able to share my heart with you today is just unbelievably perfect. So if you would, I've already shared a little bit about John. You can go to johnmaxwell.com if you're not familiar with John. You can also go to changeyourworld.com if you want to know more about how you can make a difference and be a part of the experience, the movement, to be able to make a difference anywhere and that anyone can participate in as well. So with that, I want to transition very quickly, and hopefully I can get this video to play. But I'm going to start off with a guy that knew how to turn pivot into progress. And his name was Hakeem Olajuwon. Well, I don't guess we'll do that. Maybe I can watch it on YouTube. Let's see if we can get it to happen on YouTube.
For just $67,
we've
you
got
can
this
make as
wonderful
many
ad
videos as
here.
you want, and you never need to pick up a camera or use any fancy editing software. With Doodly,
All right.
you drag.
We're going to set the stage.
Whoa. Oh, man. You got a camera?
Bulls have a 7-4 lead here.
Closing up to Clerk. Turns inside. The dream shake. Elijah spinning one way, back to fall away. The dream. Put a little dream shake. Work on Bryant. Turns to the right side. This time. Trying to turn baseline. Juwan and Pollard. Juwan spinning one way, back the other. The dream shake.
Over the head of Drexler. In it comes now Hakeem. Spin move. Look at that. How many moves did he make?
There comes the triple team D. He goes baseline. Hakeem.
Get in there, yeah.
Into the post to Elijah. Turns, comes around Michael Thompson, slam dunk.
This game, but he's been injured quite a bit. Elijah shoots the dream shake. All the long way.
Down, an excellent job by LeBron again. Here's a large gorgeous spinning jump shot. Deflected by Auburn. Elijah with a spectacular move. Hakeem Olajuwon showing the spin. Hakeem Olajuwon back down the floor. Off the headband, hits.
Elijah go. Oh, he put Grant. Oh, he put him in the cheap seats.
All right. Well, I'm not really sure why, but it doesn't matter. We were able to improvise here, and that's what leaders do. They pivot, they shift, and they make some progress. So Hakeem, the Dream is what he was called. Olajuwon was one of the greatest NBA centers of all time, and he was known for what you saw there, his patented dream shake, a pivot and move that often cleared out the room for him to be able to shoot the ball or drive to the hoop. Now, one thing about Hakeem is that he rode that move all the way to a Hall of Fame career. And it included 2 NBA championships, 12 All-Star appearances, and the NBA MVP for the 1993 and 1994 season. Now, all of that pretty much because of a pivot. Not really, okay? He didn't just pivot. He turned his pivots into scoring opportunities. And there's the parallel that I want to make here. The momentum from his dream shake, and I'm a wrestler, so I can't do the pivot and dream shake like he could, but it allowed him a better opportunity to make a basket. So pivots in life, pivots on the basketball court, they're useless if they don't lead to progress. Because if we're just pivoting, basically all we're doing is we're just spinning, right? We're just spinning around in one place instead of doing what pivots are created to do, and that is create progress, to create momentum. And what I've learned from this crazy year last year is that everyone is capable of the pivot. Everyone is capable of turning away from one direction to another. But here's the thing that I've learned. I've learned that successful organizations understand what the pivot is for. They understand that the pivot is to make progress, that a pivot is to make a new direction, to drive your team towards the goal, to create opportunity and momentum. And ultimately what that does is it creates positive energy. And when that's done well, with a low chance of resistance because you've cleared out your opposition with your pivot, you can create progress with your next step. So how do you turn that pivot into progress? How do you create your own dream shake that leads to a score? And I am glad that you asked that question. So if you are leaning in, if you're excited to be here today, if you want to learn for the next 15 to 17 to 18 minutes on how you can turn, how you can shift from pivot to progress. I want to challenge you and I want to exhort you to give me a thumbs up, give me some type of an emoji, I want to see it on here. Hit the button, give me thumbs up, give me applaud, do something. Let me know that you're interested.
Yeah.
I love it. That's what I'm talking about right there. That's what I'm talking about. Because 2020 was an unforgettable year. And to be honest, 2021 has not started off that great. It's not like we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know where the light is yet. I see it maybe, but I just know we're still in the tunnel. And hopefully you can relate to that, because I want to make sure I'm talking to the right crowd here today. But a pivot is a lot like a word that I learned a long time ago called peripeteia. It's a Greek word that means a reversal of fortune or a change in circumstances. That happened in the backseat of my mom's 1985 Mercury Cougar. I had a peripeteia moment, and that's where we're sitting at. We're at the precipice of a peripeteia moment, and we're here to help you make the best of that. So since we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, we're not really sure what it is, if it's a train or what. I want to give you 5 shifts, 5 pivots, 5 questions that every leader should ask themselves so they can turn that pivot into a peripeteia moment that leads to progress. So the first question, well, let me ask you this first. Are we going to continue to curse the darkness in the tunnel, or are we going to turn on the light? That's the choice that we have to make as leaders. There's this corny story that John Maxwell's father, Melvin, used to tell John, and it was, there's 5 frogs on a log. 4 decided to jump off. How many frogs were left? Obviously, you would think 1 frog. But the answer is 5 frogs. Because once we make a choice, once we decide to do something, it doesn't mean that we've done it. We have to decide and turn that decision into a step. A decision is step 0. A step 1 is moving and taking action. So we're going to turn on the light instead of curse the darkness. And I hope that excites you, because it takes nothing special to curse the darkness. Trust me, I know. I did it a lot in my life, and sometimes I find myself still doing it. The way some people complain, you would think that they're getting paid for it. And I know that you guys probably know some people that fit that description. And if you're sitting by them, don't look at them right now. But immediately some people popped in your head. They cursed the darkness rather than turning on the light. But we're here to help you turn on the light. And I'm going to give you 5 questions that you need to ask yourself so you can turn on the light, so you can turn that pivot into progress. So here we go. 5 questions focus forward leaders ask themselves to go from pivot to progress. Here we go. The first one is, what do I feel? What do I feel? Now, and these are in sequence from 1 to 5, and I didn't edit my slides very well here. They just got done this morning. But what do I feel? What do I feel is the first question a leader has to ask him or herself. And here's why. We have to make sure that we are emotionally connected with our people. The people we lead, the people within the 4 walls of our home. We have to make sure that we first emotionally connect with them, because I've never known leadership to be effective unless it was caring and understanding. If you know Randy Redner, he's caring and he's understanding. I've been struggling with my father's health ever since I talked to him for the first time over a year ago, and I'm still carrying the burden for my family, for my dad's health. Randy never misses a moment to check in to see how my dad's doing. He cares and he understands. And unless it's a caring and understanding leader, people tune out. They tune out. Understanding and caring is never going to be found in a leader who exclusively leads from a positional level of influence only. So the people must know that you lead, that the leader cares for them, and they must know that you relate to them. It goes back to one of John Maxwell's favorite famous quotes, and that is, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. We must always touch a heart before we ever ask for a hand. So as a leader, I want you to write this down. So if you're taking notes, give me a thumbs up, give me some type of action to let me know that you're taking notes, because we never want to trust our fortune or our future to our memory. We have to take notes. We got to reflect on the things that we're learning. So take notes right here. Here it is. So as a leader, the very first thing people do not need to know, or do not need from me, do not need from you, the first thing they do not need is knowledge. The first thing they need is an emotional tie, an emotional connection. Our people need to know that we know that they feel what you feel, and that you understand what they're going through. Period. End of discussion. And that's it. So we have to keep in our mind that just because I make an emotional connection also with you, that doesn't mean that I'm always going to satisfy you. As a leader, that's not our job, is to please you. Our CEO was challenged by John Maxwell years ago when he was first being mentored. And John turned to Mark and said, Mark, you have to make a decision. Do you want to please people, or do you want to lead people? Because clowns please people, but they can't always be leaders. You have to learn, do you want to be loved, or do you want to lead? So don't think that an agreement for me and you, understanding what you're going through, is an approval of saying that what you want me to do is always going to be yes. You're always going to get what you want from me as a leader. That's not how it is, because as leaders, we still have to lead. And what I know in the emotion of the crisis is that so many times people miss the big picture because they're caught up in the emotion. And so here's what I want to hear. Here's what I need to listen for. I need to walk slowly through the crowd. I need to understand what my people are going through. And they need to know that I feel what they feel. So number one, what do I feel? Number two, hopefully you're taking notes. Number two, the second question we must ask is this: what do I see? And these are in order. What do I feel? What do I see? The second question that I ask myself is, what do I see? And this is why. Because it's a major leadership question. Because vision, it comes down through the leader. It is the indispensable quality of leadership. And during a crisis, you've all experienced this. During a crisis, during major uncertainty, people, their vision shrinks. During a crisis, the sight of what the people see, it shrinks. They no longer see their picture in the vision of your organization because it shrinks. It doesn't expand in a crisis, it shrinks. And they begin to be consumed with what's happening to me, what's happening to my family. And it's at that moment that you and I are concerned about what's happening and what's happening around me that begins to really fade from the big picture. That wide lens, that panoramic view gets down to just a speck. The picture gets really small. And here's why. Maturity is seeing things from other people's perspective. I hope you wrote that down. Maturity is seeing things from other people's perspective. But immaturity, put an I am in front of that. Immaturity is seeing things from your own perspective. Right? During a crisis, people become very immature because their picture gets smaller. But what do leaders do? Leaders shift, they pivot, they see more than others see, which means they see bigger. They see the picture, it's bigger, and they see before. They see more before others see, which means that they see it quite quickly. And during a crisis, seeing more than others see is absolutely essential. So what that means is that while everybody's emotionally driven, while the picture is shrinking, I'm having to stay emotionally connected, but I have to also remain physically disconnected, which means that if you're in the ditch, I can't be in the ditch with you. I've got to rise above what other people are feeling. I've got to see, I've got to look, I've got to purposely and intentionally expand the vision so people can see their picture back in the overall vision. Because I promise you this, the big picture is always bigger than what we think. It's kind of like the old adage that minor surgery is for you, but major surgery is for me. That's what I'm having, right? And when in a crisis, everybody's got major surgery. In fact, I know you know someone that's going through major surgery right now because it's their surgery. So question number 2 is, what do I see? Question number 3 is, what do I feel? What do I think? Question number 1 is, what do I feel? Question number 2 is, what do I see? Question number 3 is, what do I think? What do I think? Thinking is crucial during a crisis or coming out of a crisis, and here's why. Because most people stopped doing it. They begin to react instead of focus. Their focus drifts. This is a picture of a young lady in 1965 that drifted off of the coast of the Bahamas. She was in a raft. She laid down off the beach, laid her head down on the beach. The sun was kissing her skin, and she looked up and she was gone. She had drifted without even knowing that she drifted. If you've been in an inner tube or in a float in the ocean, just a few hundred feet from the shore, you understand how quick it is to get a quarter mile from where you started. We drift. In our thinking, we drift because our focus shifts. We focus on the problems. And when we do that, we can't see the possibilities. So gang, I hope you understand that problems will paralyze us, but possibilities will release us. Problems paralyze us, but possibilities release us. And ultimately it comes down to what James Allen said. The soul attracts that which it secretly harbors, that which it loves, and also that which it fears. Because life shrinks or expands in proportion to our courage. Courage. We fuel our thoughts with either courage or fear. That's what it boils down to. And sometimes courage isn't a loud roar. Sometimes it's a quiet voice at the end of the day saying, tomorrow, I'll try again. I'll try again. So in everyday conversations, there's negativity. I want to challenge you to be courageous. I want you to think about what you can focus on, because what you focus on expands. And leaders know this, the people follow courage. They don't follow titles. And the bigger we are on the inside, the bigger we become on the outside. And when the inside is weak, there's a lack of values usually. And it's like an empty bag. An empty bag will not stand up straight. It's hollow. And when we lose our values, we lose our way. We've got to be sure, like Roy Disney said this. He said, when we know what our values are, there's no such thing as a difficult decision. Now, that's a stretch, but it's true. If we know where our values are, if we put people before profits, then you know what? That's an easy decision. The people always come first. So that was number 3. Number 4, I'm going to talk fast, so listen fast here, guys.
Yeah, Jay. You got your 5-minute time check.
I got it right here. You bet.
Okay.
Number 4 is, what do I know? What do I know? And that's the next question we have to know in order to shift from pivot to progress, because what we know is about progression. It helps me stay relevant to the people, but it also helps me with my authenticity, my transparency, my vulnerability, because trust is the currency of leadership, but authenticity is a trust accelerator. And here's what I know. Here's what I know. I know I don't know what's next. I don't know when we're going to get out of this. I don't know when COVID's going to be over. Last thing we need is a bunch of leaders thinking they know when it's going to be over, and it's not over. It's okay for us to be uncertain as leaders as long as we own it. We earn respect when we're uncertain, but we can't afford to be unclear. Clarity is king during a crisis, coming out of a crisis, because vision leaks all the time. But during a crisis, it just gushes. It just gushes. So there's a whole bunch of stuff we don't know, but here's what I do know. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that when it comes to security, leaders can't afford to overpromise and underdeliver. I can't answer your COVID question. When's it going to be over? But let me tell you what I do know. I do know that there's an answer and there's a way out. And I'm 100% sure of that. And a lot of times there is more than one answer, but there's always an answer, always an answer. So we don't know what we know, but we can tell them what we don't know. And that's okay, because clarity is king. Number 5, I always believe in leading with value. So I want to make sure that you understand that I've got something for each of you that we're going to share with you at johnmaxwell.com/CFNEG, johnmaxwell.com CFNEG. You have 36 hours to capitalize on that. It's just for you in this organization and what they've been able to put together. But I wanted to add value to you guys. And I know that this package with this bundle with the digital content in John's book for only $99, it's over a $500 discount. It's a masterclass of John teaching leadership, a New York Times bestseller that's going to help you make these steps from pivot to progress. Check it out when you get a chance. But the 5th and final question to help you shift from pivot to progress is, what do I do? What do I do? Because leaders always take action. Leaders always are activists. They're making something happen, because one great act or one small act is greater than any great intention. There's too many great intentions out there and not enough great actions. It's like John Wooden used to tell his basketball players, don't tell me what you're going to do. Show me what you're going to do. Good intentions are overrated. We have to act. In order to act, we have to create traction. And the word traction is the word action. And there's a tremendous amount of opportunity there that awaits each and every leader once they embrace the shifts, the pivots that will lead them from problems to the possibilities. And I guarantee you, for those of you that are staying connected to your customers, however you define your customers, your community, the people that you serve, whatever that means to you, I guarantee if you are staying in touch with them, if you're connecting with them, you are positioning yourself to come out of this thing stronger and better than ever before. And also a byproduct of that is you're creating a greater sense of buying, locking arms, yoking up with you, because you're creating a sense of belonging. I want to encourage you to keep leading the way. I want to keep encouraging you to be the light, to keep turning the light on. Don't curse the darkness, and understand that last year was the year of the pivot. This year is the year for progress. Randy?
Jason, thank you so much. Dream shake. I'm liking it, right? And he never used the same move, always off the pivot. The other thing I like about your 5 questions, and again, that will all come out in the information afterwards, is you could use those 5 questions to look at around you today, right? How do you answer those 5 questions today? But then as a leader, what do you want to create in the future? What do you want the world to look like 6 months from now for your team? Ask those same questions as you recreate and say, okay, but that's what it looks like. Because people need to see and understand the now but then they will follow the vision to the future, right? So those 5 questions reset in each of those. Just great. Okay, Christy is about to pop up the Magic Kingdom Zoom room link. You're going to hit that link and off you go to the Magic Kingdom. We are going to start at 9 o'clock with the folks in Orlando. From there, you got a break until 9 o'clock.
I can't believe what we're getting for what we paid. This is crazy. Thank you for the time and for all the tools that you're giving someone like me who's very young in their career.
Okay,
Excellent.
very good. Okay, we're going to get started, Rodney. We're at 1. We got 133 people online. There'll probably be a few more. I think we were peaking around 150 from there. So let me do a little intro for Rodney, and then Rodney, I'll let you have your 20 minutes of fame. You know they're going to be pinging you, asking for money and free Chick-fil-A biscuits. So just get ready for for that. And Rodney, one of the interesting things from the Disney, you got Jason up right now. Okay, there you go. From the Disney folks was they were one of their examples was talking about their parking lot and how they've done things to take care of their guests in the parking lot. Here at my Chick-fil-A, right around the corner, because of this, one of the interesting things that I saw was they came in one Sunday afternoon and took out all of the speed bumps in the parking lot to speed up the drive-through line around. So that's Brad Williams, the owner there. I give him a shout out. But I mean, people thinking about how do they reimagine their business to take care of their clients, and the next week I came in and I said, they took out the speed bumps. Just speed everybody up. I love it. Boom. Okay, Rodney Bullard, who really doesn't need, an introduction, but I'm, going to give it a little bit for you, Rodney. Rodney is Vice President, Corporate Social Responsibility. That's his one gig. Then he has this side gig over there at Chick-fil-A as the Executive Director of the Chick-fil-A Foundation. That's a great side gig. I got to get that gig someday. He's an alum of the U.S. Air Force Academy, Duke University, UGA, and didn't have enough to do, so he did a little time at Harvard as well. He's been an assistant U.S. attorney, so he can throw every one of you in jail if he wants to. He is a White House fellow, and when he was a White House fellow, he worked for NASA, so he is also a rocket scientist. You got to love that. He is an alum of the, got that. But, most importantly, many of us on this call know that Rodney has a heart as big at all outdoors and supports so many things. I'm going to give him a quick plug. I hope he's going to, do a little bit, but this is his book, Heroes Wanted. And folks, there you go, Rodney. And if we ever needed heroes, Rodney, now is the time. So I'm going to turn it over to you, my friend. And again, thank you for joining us this morning.
Well, first of all, thank you, Randy. Thank you for your leadership and for conceiving this day and for convening this group of leaders. I'm honored to be here with you all. I'm honored to be really a part of the fabric of this community. This community is home for me. I was born and raised here. Went to Redan High School in DeKalb County. And so really understand the issues of our community and what is going on and the need for leaders. I grew up in Atlanta, as I said, and I grew up in the South DeKalb area, near South DeKalb Mall, off of Flat Shoals Road. And I recall when I was a kid, I would go to the Chick-fil-A restaurant there, and there was a Chick-fil-A restaurant inside the mall, and they would give out free nuggets. And so they had this platter, and they would give out these free nuggets. And I would, when I was a kid, I would take the nuggets and I would put them in my mouth, and then I would go up and down the mall, and I would do that maybe 5 or 6 times until my mother stopped me. And at some point, my mother said, "Baby, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, they're giving away these nuggets for free, so I'm trying to get as many as I can before they run out." And she said, "Well, that's called stealing." I said, "No." And she said, "So because you were taking the nuggets more than you should have, I'm going to encourage you or make you do a research project on Chick-fil-A." And so you all may recall, Maria, you may be too young, but there were these things called encyclopedias back in the day. And so you actually had to look up people. And so I looked up Chick-fil-A in some form or fashion, and I learned that Truett Cathy was the legendary founder of Chick-fil-A. And even more so, that Chick-fil-A was started right down the street in Hateville, Georgia, where I grew up. And so that gave me this sense of pride. And I always had this great affection for Chick-fil-A, not just for the service, not just for who Chick-fil-A was outwardly, but because it was a hometown product. And fast forward, I did some of those things that Randy talked about. I went off to the Air Force and I worked at the Pentagon and NASA, White House fellow. And then I came back to Atlanta and I met Dan Cathy. And one of you all mentioned that Dan was involved, I guess, in a race or a walk with you all. Dan's always doing something. He's the most active man I know. And so I met Dan, and Dan began to talk about a heart that he and I shared for the community, giving back, specifically the west side of Atlanta, and specifically understanding what was going on around the Georgia Dome at the time, now the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And I'll tell you, as I said, I grew up here, and I would go to the Falcons games, and I'm a long-suffering Falcons fan. It is hard being a Falcons fan. It builds character. That's a leadership lesson unto itself. But I would go to these games, but I would go home. And I never really understood or realized until I worked at the U.S. Attorney's Office, the blight and the difficulty that was right across the street from the Georgia Dome. And I got to know that. I got to know it because I worked at the U.S. Attorney's Office, and we saw all of the implications of it on a daily basis, whether it be in court, whether it be the recidivism rate. 75% of those who were incarcerated were back in jail within 3 years, whether it be at the time a 50% literacy rate, the largest open air heroin market in the country at the time. And so Dan and I commiserated about this. And at some point, Dan said, you know, I want to do something via Chick-fil-A about this community. And I said, Dan, do you have a foundation? He said, no. I said, well, let's start one. And so we started the Chick-fil-A Foundation to really focus on communities that are in controversy, that need assistance. And so I remember getting to Chick-fil-A, and Truett Cathy was in his 90s, but still coming to work every day. And remember, when I was a kid, I had to look up and research Truett Cathy because I've been taking chicken nuggets. And so I was very excited to see Truett. Truett, I'm about 6'2", and Truett's a long way from 6'2". Truett was a small man. He was 5 foot something, but not over 5'5", definitely. And so I remember one day I got a call that said Truett wanted to see me. And so I was going to see Truett, and I go up to Truett's office. It was on the top floor of our support center, our headquarters at Chick-fil-A. And I walk in, and I see this smallish man there, and he says, sit down, Rodney. So I sat down, and he said, well, there are two things I want to tell you. I said, well, what is it, Truett? He said, well, one, I want to tell you that Dan Cathy hired you, but you don't work for him. You work for me. I want to make sure that's clear. I said, I got that. I understand. And then he said, secondly, he said, you know, Chick-fil-A is really more than a chicken sandwich. It's really about the people. It's about the opportunities we have to touch people, the communities. And in that moment, I thought about my experiences going to Chick-fil-A restaurants. That I had gone to Chick-fil-A when I was happy, I had gone to Chick-fil-A when I was sad, I had gone to Chick-fil-A to celebrate, and I had gone to Chick-fil-A just to kind of ponder and get away. And that I'm sure many of you all also have experienced either Chick-fil-A or Disney or some other experience for lots of different reasons. And I thought about connecting with people who actually come and are our patrons in our restaurants. And then I thought about something a good friend of mine by the name of Gregory Ellison used to tell me. Gregory Ellison is a professor at Emory School of Theology. And he would talk to me about when he was a young child. He wasn't stealing chicken nuggets, but he was a much more erudite child. And when he was a young child, he would quiz his Aunt Dot. And so he asked Aunt Dot, his favorite aunt, questions. And one day he said he asked Aunt Dot a big question. He said he went up to Aunt Dot and he said he saw all of the news. He saw pandemic, and he saw protest, and he saw police brutality, and he said all sorts of things. And he said, he asked Aunt Dot, I've got a big, and she said, well, what is the question, Greg? And he said, well, I want to know, how do you change the world? How do you change the world? How do you change the neighborhoods around Cross Keys? How do you change the world? And so at some point, Aunt Dot looked at Greg and thought, this is a big question coming from the mouth of a 6-year-old. And Aunt Dot then honestly said, I don't know how you change the world. I don't have the answer to that. But I do know this. I know that you can impact the 3 feet around you. I know that you can connect with people when you see something in need. If you see a child in need, if you see a community in need, I know you can impact the 3 feet around you. And I thought about that from a business standpoint, that every day, millions of people come within our 3 feet at Chick-fil-A. That literally, they're right there, figuratively and literally within our 3 feet. And whether we appropriately say my pleasure, and whether we treat them with dignity, honor, and respect, that's our opportunity, at least our initial opportunity, to be more than a chicken sandwich. I think about this because right now in our pandemic, we have the need to come together and think about our 3 feet. Think about how personally and organizationally, someone mentioned that, how are we exercising our 3 feet? And I think about this question that Greg's asked his aunt, how do you change the world? And I've been pondering that, and I hearken back to several things. I hearken back to March of 2017. Here in Atlanta in March of 2017, I was driving down I-85 from my home in Decatur into the city. And I recall that there was this billow of smoke, huge dark clouds, and it literally looked as if we had been attacked. And at some point, traffic was redirected and I had to go home. I wasn't able to go into the city. Later on, I found out that there was a fire and that part of the bridge had collapsed, and that was just ahead of me. And for the next few months, there was all of this disorder and disarray related to my commute. I learned ways that I didn't know existed. And all of this was because a bridge was out. And I thought about the importance of a bridge, that bridges get us to where we're trying to go, but even more so, bridges connect us. And when we don't have a bridge, we often fear what is on the other side. I thought, because I didn't know what was on the other side, that we had been attacked. I think the worst. Even more so, I am not able to get information back and forth. I didn't know what happened. I was literally in the dark. And so in this time in our society, we're thinking at Chick-fil-A about bridge building. We're thinking about how to be a bridge. We're thinking about the importance of a bridge. And even more so, we're thinking about our own personal responsibility in being a bridge. So I think about the bridge, but I also think about, how can I be a bridge? How can I exercise my 3 feet? What do I really have to give? I'm only one person. I'm insignificant. Oftentimes we're waiting for a superhero, a billionaire, a Dan Cathy, or a Chick-fil-A, a Disney, someone to come down to do this for us, someone to change the world for us. But I think about this. Randy mentioned that I was a White House fellow, and when I got to DC for the initial onboarding of the fellowship, I turned on my television. It's the first thing I do when I move is I set up my television, and I turned on my television, and I noticed that Rosa Parks had passed. And I also noticed that she was going to be laying in state in the rotunda of the Capitol. It is quite an honor. Rosa Parks, in fact, first female to lay in state in the rotunda of the Capitol. At the time, the second African-American to lay in state in the rotunda of the Capitol. Dr. Martin Luther King would later do it as well. It was quite an opportunity that I didn't want to miss. So I want to go and see Rosa Parks. So I want to go pay my respects to Rosa Parks. So I got my wife and I said, let's go. We're in DC, we should make this an outing. And what I didn't realize is a few thousand others had the same thought. And as we began to go towards Rosa Parks and go towards the rotunda of the Capitol, the gentleman asked me, he said, did you know Rosa Parks? And I said, well, no, I didn't know her personally. He said, well, do you know about her? Do you know her story? And I said, why don't you tell me? And he said, you know, on December 1st, 1955, in Montgomery, Alabama, Rosa Parks was a seamstress. She was originally from Selma, Alabama, and she didn't have any formal education. She was talented, smart, capable. In fact, she was the secretary for the local NAACP, but she didn't have the opportunity of formal education. So she did what she could. She was a seamstress in a department store. And that evening, she was getting off work, and it was raining. And she regularly took a bus to and fro in Montgomery, Alabama, as many of the African Americans in Montgomery did. And on this day, she gets onto the bus and she sees that it's James Blake. It's a bus driver she had issue with in the past. And she gets onto the bus and she sits as one of the first passengers on the bus. She sits on the 5th row back. And at this point, you could sit there. It was the first 5 rows were empty. She sat where she could. It was the first row for African Americans, actually. The first 4 were reserved for whites. And so she sits down, she sits on the right-hand side of the bus, and she nestles in right next to the window. And she thinks to herself, at some point, this bus is going to actually get crowded, more crowded than it typically does because it's raining. And so she's right. She begins to see people get onto the bus. And at some point, she begins to see white people standing and black people sitting. And she thinks to herself, at some point, they're going to stop the bus and they're going to require me to get up. And James Blake does just that. He puts his foot to the brake, he stops the bus, and then he gets up and says, y'all got to go. And the African Americans around Rosa Parks, they get up and they go to the back of the bus, but Rosa Parks sits there. And James Blake would later recount, she just sat there. She refused to get up, and I told her to get up, but she didn't say anything. And then he said, I'm going to call the police. And she said, essentially, do what you have to do. And we know the story. Rosa Parks was arrested. Rosa Parks was taken into custody. And a boycott ensued because a young preacher by the name of Dr. Martin Luther King was new to Montgomery, Alabama. But even more so, his congregation and those leaders around him, those unknown and unsung leaders, they decided that a boycott was important. And they drafted him into the process. And the boycott crippled the Montgomery bus system because the majority of the clientele were African American. So empty buses would go by. And I think about this, and I thought about it in particular when I was finally there to see Rosa Parks. And Rosa Parks was this diminutive woman, small in stature, less than 5 feet tall. No college education, no formal education whatsoever. A woman in the segregated South, Montgomery, Alabama. She would later say, you know, the pictures of me, they make me look old. They make me look like I was tired. She said, I didn't refuse to get up because I was tired. That wasn't the issue. The issue was I was tired of giving in to something that I knew was wrong. And so on that day, smallish Rosa Parks, captured in a society where she was lowest on the rung, she decided to use her 3 feet in a way that rippled and continues to ripple through American history. I say that because it's important that we think about how we use our 3 feet. It's important that we understand that we have power that is within us that is greater than we think we have. It's important for us to understand that even the simplest of acts, such as refusing to get up, or a smile, or a kind word, that all those things have impact and import. It's important for us to understand who we are. And in this time in 2021, after we've gone through 2020, after we've gone through an understanding of George Floyd and an understanding of the disequity in our community in so many different ways, not just racial, but economic, gender-based, in so many myriad of ways, we should understand that it is incumbent upon us in our leadership to not only use our 3 feet, but to use our 3 feet to build bridges. If we were in person, I would have you all connect and hold hands and squeeze the hand of the person next to you. And I would have you look around. And so I'll encourage you to look around even the squares of this Zoom call and think about the diversity of people on this call. Think about the different walks of life. Think about all the experiences that now have brought you to this singular point in time and the commonality of we are all on this call together. That time and God has all brought us to this singular point all together. And in this moment, we're very much alike, much more alike than we are different. We all are striving to be the best leaders we can be. We've all come here craving for information so that we can go back and help other people. And it's important that we hold on to that. It's important that we find that. It's important that we tread on what makes us more alike than different. It's important that we talk about it, that we think about it. And it's also important that we shed all those things that divide us, because those are choices. It's a choice as to whether or not we build a bridge. In March 2017, the bridge was rebuilt in 6 months. It was an engineering marvel. It was supposed to take 2 years. But we focused, literally, the Department of Transportation in Georgia and the Federal Department of Transportation stopped all other construction in the state of Georgia. And they focused on that bridge. They focused their efforts. They brought their individual 3 feet to that bridge. And when they did, they accomplished the goal. I encourage you to connect to one another. I encourage you to lock your 3 feet with someone else's 3 feet, to focus in and to say, we're going to change DeKalb County. We're going to change Gwinnett County. We're going to change North Georgia. We're going to change Georgia. And we're going to do that by each one of us doing our part, using our superpower, understanding that we don't have to be anything more than ourselves, understanding that the leadership that we seek is in us. We don't have to be Chick-fil-A. We don't have to be Disney. We don't have to be the Community Foundation of North Georgia. We have to be ourselves, and that is more than enough. And so I encourage you to use your leadership. Go connect with people, build bridges. And I thank you for all that you are doing and will do. God bless.
Rodney, thank you so much. Wow, that is a master class, and I appreciate that. You're talking about, superpowers. Roz, who's your executive assistant, had the superpower to create this time for, this moment for you to come in with us.
Thank you.
My question is, do you have a few more minutes, and would you be willing to take a couple of questions? We're a little bit beyond the 11:30 that we said we would be done with you guys.
We'll take it.
But Rodney, if you're open to take a few questions, I am sure this group would, somebody's going to unmute and ask you a question. So,
well, I look forward to that. And as they do, Roz, my assistant, is an interesting case in the superpower herself. She, on 9/11, was in one of the Twin Towers. Wow. And she, at some point, saw a plane go into the first tower. And they were telling her and her colleagues, and she was an assistant there in the building, and they were telling her and her colleagues to stay in place. And Raj yelled out, "No, we have to go." And they began to leave. And she and her boss survived, one of few who survived. But it was her courage on that day that really pushed and allowed some people to survive. Many of the folks there even who even after she yelled out, died. But she did, in fact, make it out. So that is part of her story, and everybody has a story.
Wow. Wow. Okay. I got so many screens. I can't, do the raise hand thing. So I'm just going to trust somebody to unmute and ask Rodney a question. We'll just take a couple and then we'll put a wrap on it.
So Rodney, what
Yes.
do you see as the biggest bridges that need to be built for us to work together?
Yes. We have this intersectionality that we overlay everything. And we start to do it with politics. We start to say that we are red or blue and that we are rural or urban. And I think that we have to understand and put politics in its place. Politics is there to help us. Politicians are here to help us. It is not a sport, and it surely is not a blood sport. And we have used politics to divide us and allowed politicians and politics to divide us. And we can't allow that any longer, because it then bleeds into, well, should we help those people over there because they aren't like us? They may not think like us. Or should we do this initiative because that initiative politically doesn't resonate with us? We do that also sometimes with religion, and we have to be careful about that, because my religion exhorts me to help everybody in the byways and the highways, and that judgment is not mine. And so I think that we have to see what societal pillars are we using that are good pillars, real pillars, but that we have somehow taken out of context and now we're using to divide us.
Okay. Another question. I'm going to take two more. Who's crazy enough to unmute and ask Rodney a question? Oh, I do not believe this, Rodney. This is not a shy crowd. I know this crowd. Dave Burchell, I'm picking on you, man, because Dave's trying to figure out how to.
I'll ask a question. This is Tina Woodard with I Am Beautiful. And my question is about, we say that leaders should follow their passion. They should be passionate about what they do.
Yes.
How do you balance it when you have multiple passions and areas in the world in which you want to make a difference, but there's only one you? So how do you prioritize and balance that?
That's an excellent question, Tina. You and I, maybe you could help me with that as well. I think from my own personal experience, and someone told me, Rodney, you can do it all, but you can't do it all at the same time. And then someone else told me, Rodney, you can do it all if you go together and you build teams. And so I've learned that both of those are true. That one, I have to start someplace, and I have to recognize that I am in that place, but that doesn't mean that's where I have to stay, remain, and that doesn't mean that that's the only calling that is on my life or only passion that I have. And then I have to create teams that create sustainability and also create greater efficiency and efficacy. And so those two things have been helpful in my life.
Okay, Dave Burchell, I'm giving you the last question. It better be a good one. Don't fall asleep.
Oh, well, I'll try not to sleep, Randy. Thank you for the encouragement. Rodney, the one question I ask myself over and over again through all of this season of life, and having gone through a few decades myself, and a heart for the nonprofit community, always had it there. What if there's one thing, you have a group of people, what's been built, as you said, there's an incredible group of 150, 60, 70 people, Randy, on this call. And we are connected. And we do have a hub, if you will. And that is the foundation, the community foundation. What would you do to help to begin cutting through this layer, this division that is hit us all in this country, in this situation? What would you suggest? I know this is putting you on the spot. could we do as a people group or as a quote family? What would be the first that you would, if you could stand on a hill and be the Moses and reach down? What can we do together as a family to begin cutting into this division that we have here in Gwinnett or DeKalb, where we might be?
Yes. You know, I think, and this is something that we focused on from a Chick-fil-A perspective as well, and it's something that we thought about mightily. I think that communities, if you cut them back, have, in many cases, similar issues. And even more so, we have similar aspirations. Everybody wants a good education for their children. Everybody cares about the next generation. They care about their children. They care about our most precious resource. Everybody wants their children to economically progress. So everybody wants a good job. Everybody wants their children to do better than they did economically, if that is their choice. So I think that we have to focus on that which we know we have in common. And frankly, if I think about just the economics of helping people, we're right now, in many cases, focusing on the symptoms and not the collective problem. That the collective problem is many children are in poverty, and that poverty is pervasive, whether it be in urban Georgia or rural Georgia, whether it be in DeKalb County or Gwinnett County, and I've lived in both. And poverty is pervasive. And I think about poverty, communities of poverty universally throughout the world have issues of education, have issues of crime, have issues of malnutrition or hunger, and have issues of housing. That is universal. I can go to Cordell, Georgia. I can go to Griffin, Georgia. I can go to the West Side. I can go any place. And those issues will persist. And frankly, we spend a lot of time focusing on those issues, but not the issue of poverty. And at the end of the day, poverty causes us to fight for resources. And so I would love for us to focus on how can we help people out of poverty? How can we create systems and equity and opportunity that allows people to be in a place of sustainability? And if we can do that, I promise you, people want education. People do not want crime in their neighborhoods. I don't know anybody in the world who really does. People want quality housing, and people don't want to be hungry. And we can focus on that collectively.
Rodney, again, thank you so much, my friend and my brother.
Thank you.
When Carol Kay sends out the email, Heroes Wanted, his book, Rodney's publisher is going to give 50% discount off of this. So you'll have the link for that to do that. Christy sent me a little sticky note. She wants, as we put a wrap on this, we're about 2 minutes away. I've just a couple things to talk through. She, on a sticky note, asked you to put in the chat. Share with us right now one leadership lesson you learned today in the time. She just wants to fill up the chat with that. So let me end with this, right? I wrote down just a few of the things. Dream shake, pivot, parking lots, speed bumps, smile on a stick, nuggets, 3 feet, bridge, and bridges. And I go back to what I started the morning with. You learn from the past, you plan for the present, you create the roadmap for the future. That's what each of you do, and I need you to do. At the Community Foundation, we are going to continue to invest in you, so you in turn invest in the community and the people around you, right? So we're going to keep piling in and doing things like this to help you, run faster, jump higher. Certainly thanks to all of our speakers, to Jason, to Kevin, to Pat, and to Rodney, and behind the scenes, huge thank you to Christy, who is the power behind the scenes for all of our education stuff. This is 5-6 months of work for her this morning, and she doesn't like to get on the calls. She doesn't like to, she likes to do her thing. So thank you, Christy. Thank you, Carol Kay. Thank you, Margaret, and my team, Britt, my team from there. all the information from today will go out with your links for all of that. Survey about today so we can learn from it from there. And then, like I told you this morning, next week an invitation will go out for our grant writing class coming up on March 25th. Thank you all so much for being incredible leaders here in our community. And we're going to need more of it. So, definitely heroes wanted as we push forward. Thank you. You all have a great day.